What's good, mi gente? It's your boy Raul. Welcome back to How Do You Say Success in Spanglish. Today, my guest is me. Uh, I wanted to take some time, this being my last episode of my first season, and almost a year into this, and about 34 episodes, 35 episodes deep, with a few Palante series and a couple Spotlight series. Um, I've accomplished a lot in this first year, and I really hope that um, I've grown and gained a lot from this. And I do feel like I've learned a lot in this first year with everything that's been going on and all the guests I've had, all the amazing guests that I've had. Um, so I kind of want to just take a last breath for this season and talk a little bit and reflect and kind of think about, where I've come from, what I've done, and kind of where I want to go, and some of the lessons learned. It's actually kind of funny because today I was watching one of my YouTube shows that I like to watch, Good Mythical Morning, and they were comparing sandwiches from Jersey Mike and Jimmy John's. And I know I'll get to the point of where a sandwich competition comes into play with how do you say success in Spanglish, but they were talking just randomly, random facts kind of they throw in there, and they talked about Jimmy John and how the owner of Jimmy John, his father, had given him $25,000 and said, start a business. And if you fail, you have to go back to the military. And it reminded me of kind of what got me started with this. For a lot of people, especially myself, who grew up poor and sometimes an immigrant, and not having this resources availability or capabilities of our family to kind of guide us. Um, the idea of having a family member say, "Here's $25,000, start a company," and going with it. Even now, my age of that I'm at, the idea of having $25,000 as a drop on a company, you know, would be nice. Not there yet to be able to just go there and start that way. And it reminded me of like why I started this. Because there's this disconnect, there's this difference, this nuance in how a lot of us who have gained any type of success or are trying to gain success, we travel this road. I don't know if I ever mentioned it in my previous podcast, but the reason I kind of started this was, like I said, I was going through my own tough spot when it came to my career. I had not felt like I progressed where I was. I was not getting the promotions I wanted. Things were being dangled in front of me. I had worked for too many years at a few different companies with very little upward mobility. So I think I had averaged about 7 years in my first job, and at the job I was at, I was circling almost 8 years, 7 years, I think, at that job as well. So it was kind of like not moving anywhere, sticking around. And so I decided, hey, let me get into some self help stuff, start reading. Well, I don't like to read. I don't like to read, but I'm a really slow reader. So reading for me is very difficult. So I like to listen to audiobooks, and I was listening to a few audiobooks about different things and self help, and some great books like Atomic Habits, um, and Rich Dad Poor Dad. The the one book I kind of changed and kind of got me into this was Shoe Dog, and not necessarily for the motivational aspect of it. Because I remember reading all the reviews, and Shoe Dog was kind of like, "Hey, yeah, this is a great motivational story. This inspired me. This was a wonderful, wonderful story." And I think as a business, and Shoe Dog is a story about the founder of Nike. Um, and as a business, I agree. I think as a business, it's a very inspirational underdog story for a company. Um, but on an individual basis, early on, I couldn't get past a certain aspect of it. The just to kind of quickly give a little glimpse of what happened. After graduating and spending some time in Hawaii and deciding he wanted to open start a shoe store, based off of some research he did in college at Stanford. He went to his dad, was able to get a loan from him, for, once again, kind of like Jimmy John's, a loan to start his business. And because his dad had connections as in different businesses, he was able to get him a connection with someone who knew someone who knew someone in Japan, and got him that initial door opening to discuss opening a factory, well, getting a factory to create these shoes for him in Japan. Um, and that was early in the book, really early in the book. I'm probably like less than, you're probably like a third way into the book at this point, and I was like, holy shit, I would never have that opportunity. My dad was a immigrant. We were all immigrants. He was a truck driver who never wanted me to drive trucks and made his life duty never to let me even like the idea of driving a truck, even to the point of never teaching me how to drive a truck out of fear that I enjoy it. Never wanted me to work because he was afraid I would fear making, you know, $6 an hour, $7 an hour at the time, as opposed to wanting to go to college. So my dad was very focused on me not fucking up and going to a certain route and going to college and becoming more successful. And I couldn't get over that in the book. I could not, no matter how I got there, every time I learned more about the story, I just couldn't get over the fact that, yeah, but you had a head start. You had a little bit of something that I would never have had. And um, you gathered this huge level of success, and it's not the same story I would have had. And that's kind of what drove me to want to do this show, this podcast, and present these stories and these journeys of all my guests who come on the show, because we do have these stories, and we're underrepresented. Nobody necessarily talks about it. You're not gonna There's not that many books that you're gonna read about, and audiobooks about, the successes of the people that I show on this show. And I want that representation. I want people like me who are going through stuff to be able to hear these stories and learn and recognize, and maybe, take a lesson from one or two people and apply that to what they're doing. Um, Personally, I've think I've learned a lot from this, from my guests, and have been able to actually apply that at work in my own job. I've become more vocal. I'm a lot more um, intentional in what I do with my career and what I want next, and being more vocal about, what I want, and more demanding of what I need from a job, as opposed to just working. Where before it was me proving myself, and now it's me expecting something back in return and holding my job accountable for that. And so um it's been working out for me, and I'm happy with where I'm at my job. I'm happy of where I'm going, and the possibilities that are opening up for me, and which is great. It's funny because I was like, I didn't expect this show to teach me lessons. That old feeling of, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and I thought I was hopefully just building something for others. But remarkably, it's actually helped me out. And lots of times when I'm at um, my own life, and there's situations, um, I think about this show and think about what others have done, and it's motivated me to do more. Not only have I been doing more with work and becoming more successful in my job, my day job, I've even gone as far as, obviously expanding this podcast to more than just my podcast, adding the Palanta series and the Spotlight series, and hopefully a couple more things when I get to next season. Um, and building more, and then also taking the experiences we hear and my experience with time. And I've actually started a company with my cousin that I'll be presenting in the near future, to kind of present to the world. And so stuff that I've always would have been afraid to do. I've kind of gained that motivation to be like, you know, do it now. It's like that. That's funny. Shoe dog, Nike, just do it. And I'm no longer um, not that I'm not afraid of stuff, um, but I'm willing to take more risks now. And it's been as positive for me that I hope it's been for some of y'all. And I do appreciate a lot of the feedback. And so I kind of wanted to go through some of the things I think I've learned from this past year, and hopefully these are some of the lessons you'll learn. And obviously, this is stuff that will get tweaked. And hopefully, I can come up with a better way of presenting this in the future, so that um, you know, through what we're doing here, what I'm doing here at How Do You Say Success in Spanglish, we can, create a good work frame for us, and something to believe in ourselves to help us all. I'm a big proponent of all ships rise with the tides, and I want to see all of us do better. I don't believe that I got to get mine, um, screw you. So I hope that I'm presenting and providing enough resources, and I'm always open to hearing more. So if anybody ever wants to come and tell me, hey, this would be great, that would be great. A lot of what I've been doing has been done by discussions with other people. Someone says this, hey, wouldn't it be great if you did this? It really would be great if you did this, and so I'm trying to take advantage of that. There's not enough time in the world for me to do everything I want to do yet, and I hopefully will keep just adding little by little, incremental increases, and incremental improvements in life, um, as well. So, um, I'm a big proponent of the idea of little bit of progression will take you a long way. So, some of the things I think are important that I've learned through this year have been, I think the first thing is believing in yourself. I think we deal with a lot of imposter syndrome. I think a lot of us have been dealt rough cards in life sometimes, that we tend to be. I think it's also a cultural thing, but I think we tend to just kind of be like, this is where we're at, accept it and be grateful for what you have, and not thinking you can do more. And you tend to take what you've been given as opposed to expecting more. And what I've noticed is a lot of people who have been successful um, have either overcome that or never had that. And I think for a lot of us, we might know that one person at our job that just keeps failing up. Someone who keeps isn't the best. Somehow they're confident enough to think their shit don't stinks, and they keep moving up, and you just don't know how, but they're three times more successful for you and have the work ethic. And so, um, you know, believing in yourself, I think, is important, man. I think being able to come and say, I deserve more. I deserve what I want. Um, you know, whatever that is. Um, because obviously success is different for everyone. One of the amazing things that I've noticed from all my interviews, and I know early on I wasn't asking people how do you say success in Spanglish at the end of all my episodes, but even within then, and people who I have asked, nobody's ever said more money. Nobody's ever said being rich. Nobody's ever said buying everything you wanted. It was always something else, something deeper, something more fulfilling, whether it's community, or doing your best, or making a difference, or, you know, um, success has never had a monetary factor, at least towards my guests that I've had on here. Maybe someday I'll have one. And they'll tell me, yeah, dude, get all the money in the world. But nobody's ever came here pushing hustle culture and making all that money, and um, you know, um, screw in the world and get yours. It's been more. And I think the reality is that, yeah, there are going to be people that are going to be super successful, but not all of us are going to be, billionaires, Bill Gates, um, and trying to achieve an unachievable goal is going to drive you insane and make you feel horrible. And so finding that purpose is going to be important. So finding your why, and so that's kind of what I think the next part too is, having some sort of preparedness of knowing. what you want, and what you don't want. Understanding that, I want this in my life, or even I don't want to work where I'm at now, or I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing, which is a difficult thing to admit sometimes. Sometimes it's harder to say, and tell yourself you don't want to do something, than it is to tell you what you want to do. Because we all want to be rich and live on the beach and do all this fun stuff sometimes. And sometimes it's harder to say, I don't know if I want to keep doing what I'm doing now, or I want to keep doing what I'm doing now, but maybe I don't want to do it here. And so those are things I think are important for us to ask. Those are things that I think we don't tend to ask ourselves enough. Um, and then once we kind of learn that and we've asked ourselves, what do I want and what don't I want? Then we got to kind of find out, what do I need to do to get there? What will it take for me to get to the job I want or the type of job I want? Or, you know, do I need to go get more education or some training, or maybe take a risk at a different job that will might teach me those skills, that will round me off to, that's kind of what I did. I knew I wasn't happy where I was at. I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go, but I knew I wanted to go something different. And I took an opportunity to take a job as a consultant that rounded me enough to get me to where I'm at now in my current job. And I'm grateful for taking that, um, opportunity. But I kind of had to know, you know, if I take this job, it's going to teach me A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that's going to help add to what I don't have right now in my career, in my skill sets. And it helped tremendously. The job I have now, I would not be able to do as well as I did there if I had not taken that job, because I learned so much in those 2 years, working with that company. Um, but obviously, once you learn that and you know that and you're prepared with that stuff, I think the next step is, not being afraid of risk. There's a lot of risk that we tend to be very risk averse. We do not like the idea of scary changes sometimes. Some of us will not apply for the job because we think, once again, going back to believing yourself, that we're not going to get it, right? Um, or we're afraid to switch jobs because I know what life is like here. I don't know what is going to be in there, And so, um, regardless of whatever you do, and yeah, there's always going to be situations where you might make the wrong choice, but the wrong choice is just an opportunity to learn more about how to do the right choices. Failures are just learning lessons to success. And so I think not being afraid of risk is really important. And, not every risk is big. Not every risk is I'm going to leave my job and go work at a different company across the country. Little risk like, you know what, maybe I'll ask my boss for a raise this time around when I go for my review, or I'll ask my boss for a promotion. You deserve it sometimes. Believe in yourself, Um, but don't be afraid of risk. Don't be afraid of saying and telling yourself, hey, you know, maybe this opportunity could be worth it. Um, Sometimes you don't know what you have to lose. And sometimes you won't even realize how much you can handle. Tell me 5 years ago that I'd be working full time, sometimes more than full time, for my day job, running a podcast with two other series, interviewing people on a regular basis, doing socials, posting this while also trying to start a new business, um, and go to most of my daughter's soccer practices and games, be an active dad and an active husband in my life. Like I probably would have told you I'd never be able to handle that. And sometimes I feel like I don't know if I am handling it all the best way, but I've taken that risk and I feel like I've done pretty well, so far. And so, not to pat myself on the back because I'm not perfect, but I feel, you know, I try to teach my daughter to be okay with risk and not be afraid of trying something new. And I've had to start listening to my own advice. And like I said, the show's kind of helped me with that. So, don't be afraid of risks. And, as we start progressing through this, you start believing in yourself and you're getting yourself prepared, knowing what you want and not being afraid of risk. And like I mentioned, start advocating for yourself. Start being vocal of what you want at your job, um, or what you want, in your life. Advocate. speak it to the world, speak it to your job, speak it to your boss. Let the world know who you are and what you want. You know, be open about it. Don't hide back what you want. Things won't change if you don't say something. If you want a raise, ask for the raise. And if they don't give you the raise, well, then you know where you stand and you know what your next moves are. Either you stay with no raise or you do something else, right? Um, my previous job that I was at for years, I wanted a raise. I would have been happy with like a 10% increase, you know. Now I'm making almost more than double that I was making at that job. And when I started this job, they tried to get me back for a new for a position that opened up. And the salary they would have gave me with a much bigger um, title, a nice manager title, was still like 30K less what I was making at that time. And you know, had they given me that 10%, I probably would have still been there, which would have been good, which would have been fine at that time. So, you know, know your worth and advocate for yourself. And sometimes companies do not will overuse, companies are business. They're there to make money, not to be your friend. They're not your family. They don't really care about you, you know, no, not more than what you're able to provide for them. So don't get that twisted. Don't get confused on that. So you have to advocate for yourself because they will not have your best interest in mind. And they would fire you if it helped them save money. They will replace you if you had to leave. And, they might come back a few years later and say, damn, I could have had a great employee if I would have just gave you a little bit more, but they won't do that at that moment. And so you have to advocate for yourself, whether it's within your company or outside. You have to be your own advocate. Um, and then also, you know, don't be afraid to accept help. Um, also don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it, but don't be afraid to, accept help. I think one of the great things I've read, especially my last um, episode with Dr. Raul Fernandez, where he talked about, this gifted program that he was in. And I've talked about with my other friends where it was the upward bound program. And then, early on, my interview with David Landon, where he mentioned that, he can't take the credit for the opportunities that were opened up for him, but he can take the credit for recognizing those opportunities and taking advantage of them. Like sometimes help is being presented to you and we don't take it. Someone would say, "Oh, I know someone that could you could talk to and they can help you with your resume." Oh, okay, I'll see. You know what I mean? Those are opportunities for you. Sometimes the world, is giving you these situations, and we're too proud to take them. You know, accept the help, ask for help. If it's something you really want and you want to make changes, don't be afraid to accept that help. And, um, sometimes that's all it's going to take. Sometimes that's what we will, you know, we all sometimes don't get there on our own. I'm proud of what I what how Upper Bound has helped me and how my fraternity has helped me. Shoot, ha- almost a good portion of the guest is from my fraternity. Because I take advantage and I ask for that help. And I ask my brothers, "Can you jump on this show and tell me about your life and tell me about your story?" Because I envy a lot of my brothers and I'm proud of a lot of what they've done. And I look at them as not just for guidance sometimes and for help. And I I wouldn't have taken the last job if I wasn't for one of my brothers telling me, "Hey, this is what you would have to do if you took this job, but you can do it, and I believe in you." And it made it a little easier for me to be like, maybe I can. So, ask for help, seek that advice. Help can be big or small. Sometimes just talking to someone is what you need, and that help can really set you aside. Look for resources, and hopefully, I can start creating more resources that where people will be a little more able to jump on and say, "Hey, I'm looking for information on this," and hopefully this podcast can provide some help for you as well. But you can contact me as well if there's something, and I'm always happy to try to see where I can help out. So same thing. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Um, and then another thing that I think it's important to me as I've gotten older, and something that keeps popping up is taking care of yourself. Um, both mentally and physically. There is a lot of people that have jumped on my podcast that have talked about the importance of their mental health and how getting a therapist has really changed their life and how things were difficult or they wish they would have started seeing a therapist sooner or things have gotten really bad for them or things like that. And me, taking care of yourself mentally is really important, just as much as taking care of yourself physically. I talked about my physical health and the stuff that's gone in my life that have completely changed my outlook and makes me wonder, how much time do I have left in this world, and will I look back at my what I've done on my deathbed and say I gave it my all, and I want to, and that's also, you know, why you need to be able to take care of yourself mentally and physically. Because if any of that derails you, it derails you from your success. And you want to be around for your success. You want to enjoy your success. And so take care of yourself, and with that, work life balance. That's become so important for me as I've become a father and my daughter gets older and she's a few years away from hating me and never want to talk to me when she becomes a teenager. So I'm accepting the fact that I got to try to take as much advantage now to be a big part of her life, and be involved with as much as I can. And it's hard for a lot of people. Um, you know, Sometimes I've gotten lucky that I work from home and can have the flexibility with my job, so I can make it happen. And I even get asked sometimes, like, "How do you find the time for stuff?" And I was like, "I try to make the time. Can't make the time for everything. There's a lot of things I push off to the side because it's just not on the top of what's important sometimes. But I do try to maintain some level of work life balance, and I think that's really important for us. I was reminded of a quote that someone told me, you know, when you're on your deathbed, about to take your last breath, the last thing you're going to think about is, man, I wish I would have worked more hours. It's never going to be about how much time you put in at work and how much money you made from work, and you're going to remember the other things, how much time you've been with your family, how much time you were with the people you love and being surrounded by those that make you happy. So, take care of yourself, you know, take care of yourself mentally, physically, and, get that work life balance that you can because you don't want to burn out as well. So, Coach Mark will be jumped on and talked about burnout a bit. And I think it's important. I think it's really relevant. And I think there is a lot of things that can burn you out. And sometimes with everything that I'm doing, I feel I'm getting close to burnout and I got to take some time. I got to say, hey, you know what? I think I'm not going to do anything today. I'm just going to veg out and play some video games or watch a movie with my wife and kid. So um, it's always a balancing act, and you got to take care of yourself. Um, and then I think ultimately, you have to progress and then recognize progress, right? You have to make the moves and the changes to do better. You're going to, as you recognize things and start doing stuff and actually being, uh, taking the actions to get what you want, you're gonna progress, even if it's incremental. One of God, man, it's um, there's this, and I'm blanking out on the book's name, but it's a book I really liked, and it's not Atomic Habit. I'm confusing it now, but it's Compound Effect. Sorry, the Compound Effect, and I really love that book, and I really enjoyed that book and what it talked about because it talked about incremental um, progression. How little changes eventually add up to a lot of changes. If you think about it as weight loss, losing 35 pounds is really difficult, but losing half a pound here and then another half a pound and another half a pound, with time, you'll get to that 35 pounds. You can't just come and lose 35 pounds in one night. And so you can't run a marathon until you learn how to run a mile, and you can't learn how to run a mile until you learn how to walk a mile. And so it's incremental increases. The idea that um, if you improve yourself by 1% per day, by the end of the year, you've improved yourself by 365%. So it's little things add up. And so you have to recognize that you are going to progress, and you are going to progress little by little, and that's okay. Sometimes you might make some big jumps, sometimes you might have a little bit of a setback, but at the end of the day, you're going to keep progressing. And then you have to recognize that progress. You have to remember progress is progress. Any little progress is good. That if it's a 5% increase in your raise or 2%, you ask for more, or maybe you get more PTO, or maybe you're able to convince your boss to put you on the list of potential new manager. All those little things are better. Or even recognizing that, hey, my job is not going to take me where I want to go here at my job. That's progress. You've learned something new. You've obtained some new knowledge that you can use to make better decisions. And so recognize that. Tell yourself, hey, I'm progressing. I am making progress, and be proud and happy of what you're doing. It is not a fast race to the end. It's a marathon. You will take your time, you will build up, you will train, and you will get there eventually. But you have to just keep working at it, and you just have to recognize that the work is becoming positive, that there is action occurring and you're progressing. And so, I think that's one of the things that I've had to kind of look at sometimes, where the truth is, as you get more successful, from where I was in my early career, um the amount of money I make now was the dream, and I make a lot more than what I was my dream of what I wanted to make. And I still sometimes feel like I'm not there yet. I still don't feel like it's changed my life. Why? Because it's not going to. I'm still me. I'm still my life. The things that are here and there are still a part of my life. And making more money isn't going to fill the voids or whatever feelings I feel. And I have to recognize that, be proud of where I'm at, be proud of all the little things I've accomplished in my life, and all the big things and all the successes in my life, because the monetary aspect of that was driving me insane, because I felt like I wasn't where I wanted to be. And then I took a second and took a step back, and I recognized what I've achieved. And so recognize your progress, recognize what you've accomplished, and be proud of yourself for any little change you've done, because change is difficult. I work IT. I do a lot of stuff where I'm introducing new products and stuff, and people hate change, and people hate learning how to do new things and drag it out forever as long as they can. And so being open and honest with yourself to be able to make change is is very difficult, and you should be proud of yourself for being able to accomplish that. So, um, I think those are some of the things that I've taken away from this year. I hope to expand on this with more time as I interview more people and I learn more lessons. There's a lot of things that people have mentioned on this podcast that I tend to quote now. And when I talk to people who've listened to an episode, and, you know, different aspects of what people say and how it goes into play, and it's opened up my mind a lot, and I hope for a lot of y'all too. And I know everybody comes in with different perspectives and have comes in with different industries they work at, or jobs, or different things they're doing, and different stories and different journeys and things like that. But I feel like each one of them have provided a lot of good lessons. And like with that compound effect, all those little lessons add up into big lessons. And I think for me, having to listen to of all of them, it's have it has made major impacts on me. And so I hope at least it's making some impacts on some of y'all, even if it's a small incremental impact. So, but thank you guys for a great year so far. It's been a lot of work, and I'm excited to be able to provide more in season two. We'll I'll be taking a little bit of a break to uh, decompress for a little bit, take a little bit of enjoyment of my summer, and plan and prepare for some hopefully bigger and better things for the new year. And as always, thank you guys for all the support. I really appreciate you guys listening in, and I look forward to season two. and continue to give you guys a lot more stuff. So I hope you join me again as we continue to learn how to say success in Spanglish. And thank you for a dope year. Peace out, guys.